Do you love me more than my sister? The question hangs in the air. In a world where every word must be absolute truth, there's no way to soften the answer. You feel your heart race. What would you say? And what would that world look like? So step into it. No white lies, no spin. A girl asks her dad, "Do you like my drawing?" He looks. "I wish it were better." She crumples it, and it's everywhere. Leaders, ads, lovers. At first it stings, but then? Can truth alone hold us together, or tear everything apart? Think about your day. How many small falsehoods smoothed the way? Love the haircut. I'm fine. Tiny shields protecting feelings. But you feel the weight, that disconnect between words and meaning. Now imagine those shields are gone. Every truth, naked. Would it free us or destroy us? It doesn't sneak up. One Tuesday morning, a mother goes to say, "I'm fine," but the words lock in her throat. Instead, she hears herself whisper, "I'm so tired." Across the globe, at the exact same moment, every person feels it. A shift, a new rule. Lies simply stop working. In a conference room, a CEO opens his mouth for a routine speech and says, "I don't know what I'm doing anymore." The silence is sharp. That evening, a husband asks his wife, "Do you still love me?" She doesn't answer right away. The pause becomes the truth. By morning, governments are frozen. A press secretary stares at the cameras, no spin possible. Then the words come. "We cannot guarantee your safety." The world listens. Markets don't just dip, they collapse, not from fear, but from the honesty of the books. But in the wreckage, a little girl asks her dad, "Will you protect me?" He doesn't answer right away. When he does, the words feel heavier than ever. Now comes the real test. Can love survive without the little lies? Because that's where we're headed. Take a family at breakfast. She asks, "Do you still love me?" He can't just say yes. The silence grows. That's where small kindnesses used to live. Some relationships survive that pause. Many don't. At work, the break room is tense. A boss tells you your project is mediocre. You hear it, and it stings. But everywhere, people are hearing the raw truth, and nobody's braced for it. We're walking around without our usual armor. But a quiet loop emerges. If we all tell the truth, whose truth counts? Because your memory of an event isn't mine. So now we're not just arguing about honesty, we're arguing about reality itself. And soon, someone notices. No one's telling stories anymore. A joke falls flat because it's not literally true. A child's imaginary friend disappears. Maybe the little lies weren't just protection, they were the seeds of imagination. And if we can't lie, can we still dream? But the unraveling doesn't stop at our doorstep. When a world leader can't smile through a tense handshake, the old diplomatic dance breaks. A careless truth slips out, and suddenly, an alliance that held for decades is in ashes. In the chaos, something strange happens. The institutions that survive the honesty, they become unshakable. Because if every deal is laid bare, if every motive is transparent, we can finally see who we really are. And that's terrifying. But here's the catch. Transparency reveals not just our flaws, but our fragility. With no shield of deception, can we handle the weight of seeing ourselves so clearly? And what happens when we realize some truths are too heavy to carry? But here's the part nobody saw coming. We can still be wrong. Deeply, completely wrong. Because you can't lie, but you can believe. Your neighbor looks you in the eye and swears the sky is green, and his voice doesn't waver. He's not lying, he's just mistaken. And suddenly, truth isn't a shared thing anymore. It's personal. 1,000 versions of the world, each one real to the person holding it. A mother tells her son that love is a chemical reaction. She believes it with her whole heart. He sees love as something sacred. They're not arguing facts, they're living in parallel realities. Society doesn't break because we're dishonest. It breaks because we're trapped in bubbles of belief. And when you challenge someone's deepest truth, you're not calling them a liar. You're calling their whole mind into question. So we stop listening. We cluster with those who see the same green sky, and the gaps between us become chasms. You notice it first in the small silences. A friend unfollows. A family dinner where no one speaks. Not because someone lied, because her truth and his truth can't share the same table. So they build separate tables, separate worlds, and the distance grows. Then the signs go up. Block by block, we map out belief. This street sees a world where love is sacred. That alley sees nothing sacred at all. We build walls not of brick, but of who agrees with us. You walk down the wrong street and the air itself feels hostile. Without lies, fiction dies. Artists can only share what they believe is true. So every song becomes a manifesto, every mural a declaration. You walk into a gallery and feel like you've stepped into a sermon. Your truth is art, theirs an attack. It begins with words, then painted slogans. But when faith feels like survival, words become weapons. Not a war over land or gold, a war over which reality deserves to be the one we all live in. And one question now sits everywhere. Whose truth gets to be real? For a while, the world answered with fists. Every wall a mural screaming someone's truth, every street corner a pulpit. You could feel it in your chest, this awful certainty that the other side had to be silenced. Because if your truth wasn't real, what were you? But in small pockets, something else flickered. People started listening, not to argue, but to understand. They called it radical empathy, and it hurt. It meant holding someone else's truth like it was your own, even when it scraped against everything you believed. Slowly, impossibly, that honesty and empathy began to braid together. Not perfect, not safe, but real. And for the first time, we glimpsed a world where truth doesn't divide, it binds. But the real test? It hasn't come yet. Because every fragile piece has its first storm, and ours was just over the horizon. But maybe the storm was never the real test. Maybe we just never realized. We didn't need lies to protect each other. We needed the courage to speak truth, gently. Imagine the first time you do it. Your voice shakes, but the words carry no sharp edges. And the other person doesn't shatter, they listen. Something unlocks. What would your first honest, kind truth be? Sit with that. And if that's stirring something, hold on, because our next what if might change everything all over again.